Hi, everybody. It's Becky, the Marriage Crisis Manager. I am so fed up with working with couples who made misguided marriage decisions that I've decided to write a extensive blog for those of you who are single and contemplating getting married someday, to give you some of the advice I've learned over the years through personal experience and painful experience, and with working with thousands and thousands of couples. I think there's stuff here that none of you, or very few of you, have ever thought about. So, and because this particular blog is so long, it's about a 23-minute read. I thought I would read it on a video so that maybe I could keep your attention. So here we go. Okay, the title of this blog is Avoid Marriage Hell by Choosing the Best Mate for Yourself. I actually published this article in April of 2024, and I thought, man, this information is like gold, and only 3,000 people read it in, over a year. And that's really low. It's really, really low. I was hoping that about 30 million would read it and we could actually begin changing the world, but I guess not. So anyway, I am going to try again. Here we go. So if you ask me, the number one cause of divorce is choosing an incompatible mate. It absolutely pains me that humans often fail to spend enough time discerning who or what type of person would be a good or right match for them in a long-term relationship. People seem very impatient when it comes to dating. Instead, they date before they have the emotional maturity and skills to be a good partner themselves, and then they choose from a relatively small number of people they believe are suitable, using criteria like physical attraction, who lights a fire in certain parts of their body, what the person looks like, who's a challenge, and what kind of car they drive. Then they run with it. In some cultures, other people choose their mate for you. I've actually seen couples who choose one another, and I've seen those who didn't. And neither method seems to work very well. I'm not saying that things like physical attraction aren't important, but when you're going to spend your life with someone, you can be sure your partner will not be beautiful forever. Ultimately, I would want a friend and companion I enjoy spending time with and can have a good time with, removing any thoughts of romance and sexual intimacy from the equation. I asked my mother, who was born in 1919, why she chose my father, who was as dysfunctional a person that you could ever find, who wasn't locked up in a mental hospital. And she said, well, he was a lawyer. Indeed, a 21-year-old woman from a lower middle class family with a high school diploma during the Depression was probably looking for a good provider. Since we're all wired instinctually for survival, a good provider is a draw for a person who hasn't set themselves up to provide for themselves. Whenever we choose a partner for what they can offer that we can't get for ourselves, it's a bad day and a terrible predictor of a future successful relationship. She set herself up terribly because he verbally abused and cheated on her relentlessly, sometimes moving in with another woman for months or even years. She tolerated it because, to her, she didn't have any other options. This is why I advise everyone who can read to have a plan in place to support themselves in case they need to leave. There are so many ways to sabotage yourself when choosing a mate. I used to do it too, hence my record of being married 4 times and divorced 3. At least I stopped myself after number 3 and said, Becky, what the hell are you doing? You have to get your shit together. That sparked my insatiable thirst to learn everything I could about being a healthy human being and what it means to be healthy in relationships and families. If you're looking for a committed relationship, I hope you will devote more time and thought to it than you have to anything else in your life. It's that important. I'll share with you the basic principles I've observed about people and the reasons they give for choosing their mates. You'll see where so many sabotage themselves. I hope you'll take this information to heart and keep it in mind whenever you're looking for romantic partners and face a mate selection decision. The first concept is people are of equal value as human beings, but not as potential mates. You will never have a good relationship if you have low self-esteem. It is simply impossible. Now let me help you with that. You are valuable and worthy. No human has more value than another, and no human is better than anyone else. What defines human value is only one thing, the fact that we are a human being. As a human, I'm of equal value to Paul McCartney, even though he's a billionaire and a beloved, world-famous songwriter and musician. A human's value isn't measured by external things like money and beauty and talent or anything else. Those are just toppings on the ice cream dish of life that makes us special and unique. However, not all humans are equally healthy and functional mentally and emotionally. When choosing a life partner, it's essential to be aware of certain factors, as selecting a lower functioning person can significantly complicate your life compared to choosing someone who is high functioning. I've talked to clients who think it's wrong to dismiss low-functioning mates as partners because they see it as arrogant and conceited. I completely understand where they're coming from, but healthy people prioritize self-care, and allowing people in their lives who drag them down isn't good self-care. It is not good mate choice decision-making to choose underdogs, stray puppies, dependent people, those who are mentally ill, addicts, those who have potential, who are needy or need rescuing, or people you have trauma bonded with. Like shopping for a house, you need a person who's move-in ready and not in need of a remodel or someone you have high hopes for, because very few people change that much, though many know they should and say they will. To have a healthy relationship with someone, it's wise to choose someone who is already functional, can support and take care of themselves, and can be alone, and knows how to be self-reliant. In short, somebody who's solid and dedicated to mutual respect and the work it takes to keep long-lasting relationships stoked and alive. Here's another category: marrying too young. Some young adults choose their marriage partner before their brains fully develop. If you don't know, our brains are like an investment that takes at least 25 years to mature. It's there working before that, but it's also uncontrolled and unpredictable, and we have little impulse control. That's why children drive us crazy. They literally cannot control themselves. Car insurance companies know young people make bad decisions and don't lower their rates until they're pretty sure that brain cake is done in our mid to late 20s. Yet some of these young adults marry, not comprehending that who they are in their 20s is not remotely who they'll be later on. My state, Arkansas, has one of the highest divorce rates in the country, and that's because people tend to marry at a very young age here because of a strict religious background. The younger you marry, the higher the chances you won't make it, and that number is about 75%. The main reason to wait until you're older is to gain a better understanding of yourself and the person you're marrying. Another thing to note along these lines is how dependent a person is on their parents. If they still rely heavily on their biological family for life advice or want to please them and get their approval, it's a good indicator that they're not fully grown up, mature, or ready for marriage. A healthy marriage involves two people who prioritize their self-care, followed by their relationship. If their parents still come before the relationship, then that's a huge red flag. I remember being out of college and working, but I still called my dad about buying a car, a house, tires, and things I didn't know anything about. Then the day came that I didn't even think of calling him. I no longer wanted or needed his advice or approval for anything I did. I had grown up, and this is what I'm talking about. I can't tell you how many couples I have seen where one partner remains enmeshed with their biological family, and the left out spouse feels like a second-class citizen in comparison. An emotional adult would not allow this to happen. It takes an emotional adult to have a solid marriage. I must acknowledge that some individuals come from cultural backgrounds that value adult children staying enmeshed with their families until kingdom comes. One reason is that staying close and helping one another has ensured the family's survival over the decades and centuries. Still, the only way this will work for the person marrying into a family like that is if the newcomer is treated the same as everyone else, and if the spouse values what the spouse wants when push comes to shove, and is loyal to their spouse over their family, come what may. Whenever our partner feels left out or treated less than in a family group, it has disastrous effects and is not a good day for the marriage. Often, I see the dynamic where a couple marries when one person is more solid and established and the other is dependent and looks up to the other. It happens often when the two have an age difference and each person is in a different life stage. I've yet to see a couple with a dynamic like this where the person who looked up to the other didn't eventually mature, become less dependent, take off the rose-colored glasses, and at some point demand a seat at the table of equality. I have seen many spouses who enjoyed being looked up to and admired and require it to be happy in the relationship. I remember one man telling me when I interviewed him for my dissertation about how people decide to divorce. When I decided to marry her, I needed to know that I made more money than any man she'd ever dated. I thrived on her looking up to me. This was his ego talking, I thought. That man's wife went to college, got a high-powered career, and no longer looked up at him like a child to a parent. She was still enjoying the marriage once she grew up and blossomed into who she was meant to be, but his ego couldn't handle it, and he had an affair with one of his female students. Predictable. If the person who married the unfolding adult child can't allow and flex with their partner's growth and their ego needs to be looked up to, they'll be left in the dust one day, and he was. But young people don't think about these things. They think about physical appearance, ego, popularity, sex, and other things that don't stand the test of time. Here's another issue. People underestimate the quality of partners they can attract. This is a complex topic because it sounds like I'm being grandiose and saying that some people are better than others when that's not my point. As I said before, people are of equal value as human beings, and all human beings are important. Still, for various reasons unrelated to their humanity, Some are better partners than others. Most of us can become great partner material if we work on ourselves and learn about what it means to be healthy as individuals and in relationships. Unfortunately, about 95% of people will never do that and will stay in their childhood trauma personas like the people pleaser, the overachiever, perfectionist, and more. I would stay away from these people if I were in the market for a mate. That said, after talking to thousands of people over the years, I've noticed that human beings tend to rate themselves on a scale as far as how attractive they are to others. I talk to clients about this when they show a pattern of choosing high maintenance, low functioning, and even abusive partners. When this happens, it becomes an emergency to get them to see themselves as higher quality partner material than they currently do. People tend to put themselves in a group where they feel they belong, but my issue is that their opinion of where they fit is often too low. For explanation's sake, let's imagine that a scale goes from 0 to 100, and the worst people on the planet are at 0. I'm putting psychopaths, abusive and addicted folks, and the criminally insane at the bottom of my list. And the best, most unattainable ones are at 100. Who is 0 and 100 and who is in the middle depends upon your own belief and value system. I probably won't attract Brad Pitt or George Clooney, who are near the top of my scale, but I'd like to find a partner as high up as possible. For me, the best mates are self-sufficient, healthy, have a good personality, solid financial status, good physical health, are friendly with a good sense of humor, they're open, have a good relationship with themselves, they're confident, they know who they are, they have things and passions they believe in and enjoy. They appreciate and enjoy multiculturalism and diversity, are accepting of those different than they are, can laugh things off as opposed to taking things personally, are capable of the give and take a relationship requires, and welcome growth and change. P.S. No smokers will be considered. That is at the top of the scale for me, and I want to be that type of person and have a partner with similar characteristics. Too many of my clients have told me they don't see themselves in the top 50% of their scale, though I can see that they are. I may see a client at a 90 or 95 and they'll tell me they're a 40 or a 45. Not seeing yourself as the valuable, wonderful person you are sets you up to lowball when it comes to mate choice. It's vital that you get your self-image to an accurate and healthy place before you choose life mates. It's human nature for most people to look at themselves with a humble eye, but do not underestimate how wonderful you are. It's okay to know you are solid mate material and to be at peace with, like, and love yourself. Qualities that predict long-term marital success, says John Gottman, who has studied what predicts divorce or lifelong happy marriages more than anyone, include emotional intelligence, self-care, self-confidence, ability to laugh things off, life balance, flexibility, spontaneity, vulnerability, commitment-oriented, interpersonal growth, healthy and open communication, and a sense of humor. These are the things that predict a strong foundation. If you're going to spend the rest of your life with someone, please keep these things in mind. Another category, power differentials. Marriage therapists recognize that the more differences a couple has in terms of power and privilege dynamics, the more likely they're to encounter problems moving forward. So, finding someone with similar characteristics and background to you is one of the most important things you can do and will eliminate many of the potential pitfalls couples often face. I think about all the different kinds of power differentials. different economic resources, education, social position, culture, ethnicity, religion, age, beauty, socioeconomic status, and upbringings. And I've worked with quite a few couples over the years who decided to marry and divorce primarily because of cultural influences and differences. Idealists and the naive will minimize these things when in the throes of romantic love at their peril. When I was single in my 40s, I wasn't thinking about my education as being an issue for men. But I soon learned it was for many of them, as they throw it in my face. One evening, I remember one date saying, "You think you're so much smarter than I am, don't you?" Ooh, I thought, not really. I'm not even thinking about that at all. But it made him feel insecure, showing me we could never be a match. These are problems that no one needs. If someone ever puts you down for any reason, including what you have or don't have, the solution is very straightforward. Walk away. Healthy mates don't act or think like that, period. Still, I understand it takes a special person to be like a Stedman to an Oprah and to feel great about themselves in the shadow of another person's tremendous success. That man and others similar to him that would point out that my education and the fact that I was a therapist were negative traits taught me that I should either look for men with comparable education or who were confident enough not to care about my educational background and didn't feel threatened that relationship dynamics are my thing. I hate that we have to think about these inequities, but we're fools if we don't. Find someone confident in who they are so they aren't threatened by who you are. If you're the one with the most power in your relationship, don't use it unkindly either. Ensure you're confident enough to treat a partner who has less than you have, or you have mutually agreed will be primarily dependent on you financially, just as you would want to be treated. If you look down your nose at your partner at all, or think there's potential for that, don't sign up to spend your life with them, as the chances of you making it in a mutually respectful marriage are about nil. I've worked with quite a few female breadwinners who admitted they looked down on their financially dependent husbands and didn't respect their role or need for freedom to spend money or have dreams of their own. These things have to be corrected for a marriage to make it. So many men have asked me, why do women seem to only want bad boys? The truth is that only unhealthy and dysfunctional women want bad boys. When it comes to gender differences, it's the same for men. Dysfunctional men desire bad girls, and dysfunctional people are attracted to troubled people. Like attracts like, or so they say. Healthy people won't choose unhealthy mates or those they perceive as troubled or bad. Be thankful if someone rejects you because you're not a rebel or a rabble-rouser. You just dodged a bullet. Another issue people talk to me about is looking for solid people. It's one of my pet peeves. I think we should all be looking for solid people to spend our lives with. I've written dozens of times that when dating and choosing a mate, you'll meet boys and girls and you'll meet men and women. If you're attuned, you can sense the difference between the two. Boys and girls can be any age over, let's say, 25, and are not solid and mature enough for a long-term relationship. When I meet these types, I think of them as outrageous, ridiculous, and often drawn to a party or college days lifestyle or bar culture. If you're looking for a party girl or boy, you will get what you ask for, and when you come to see me for marriage counseling in a few years, I'll look at you and ask, why? When it comes to the choice of partners, you literally could not do worse. I was never a partier, but I have partied. Even in junior high and high school, my friends were the solid kids, and I avoided the party kids. My point is that even at a young age, I could tell who was a solid person and who was not. You should be able to do that too. Those who partied in high school and college often grow up mature and become solid. But don't choose them as your partner until you know for sure. Solid people strike a balance between being responsible and knowing how and when to play and relax in healthy, non-self-sabotaging ways. Here's another category I want people to think about: sample size. Doesn't it make sense that the odds of finding a truly compatible mate might take more than picking from a sample size of less than 10 people? People once teased me when I told them I dated dozens of men, maybe more. But dear Lord, I wanted to find an excellent mate. The more I learned about what a healthy mate was, the more difficult it was to find one. There are tons of single people out there who are so dysfunctional that they have no business dating, yet they're seeking new relationships all the time. I feel they should come with a warning label like cigarettes and alcohol. They'll present themselves as partner material, good to go, so your most important role is to ensure that they don't end up with you, and that's the purpose of this entire article. One of the biggest red flags you're likely to encounter is the person who wants to rush to commitment. These people likely have anxious attachment issues and cannot be alone, and they need someone to hitch their ego to so they can relax and enjoy life. They especially want to seal a commitment down before you see what an absolute needy and lost soul they are. It should concern all of us that some people don't want to do the due diligence required to make a successful life mate decision. Even after divorce, I've noted that many of my clients jump right back into the dating pool too soon and tend to wed someone from a sample of less than 5 possibilities. Why? Are people not patient? Can they not be alone? Are they financially dependent? What criteria are they using? It should be common sense that after we come out of a relationship, we should take time to grieve, reflect, and learn our lessons before moving forward into another one. Conveyor belt relationships, one after the other, are a ridiculous way to manage your life and a great way to end up in another bad relationship. It's wise to slow down, take your time, and be better and more mindful about how you live your life. If you notice that a person you've met has just come out of a relationship, be wary. I've always looked to meet people who have been single and free for at least a year. It's a criterion that eliminates much of what I'm discussing in the neediness and dependency category. Our relationship choices matter to our health, our well-being, and the mental and emotional development of our current or future children. I once had a girlfriend. She was an attorney and a fellow single mom, and she had no desire to take the time to find the right relationship. She told me her only criteria for a man was that he be a Republican and make at least $60,000. In Texas, these types are in plentiful supply, and her search would take less than 15 minutes. I knew then that she was the dating equivalent of a reckless driver. It was challenging to avert my gaze as she dated men who, in my view, were red flag factories. One conned her and her friends out of money, not me, of course. Another who verbally abused her and her child, and another who looked good but had an IQ of around 75. Her lack of interest in selecting a good mate led to some of the worst mate choices I could have imagined. To my complete astonishment, She married one of them with red flags waving all around. This was a case of too little self-respect and not enough limits on the type of person she was willing to accept. Being a minimalist in the mate selection process is like playing Russian roulette with 5 bullets in the chamber. Watching her made me nervous, and seeing her relationships fall apart in awful ways reaffirmed everything I'm telling you now. You know the old saying about if you keep doing the same thing and get the same outcome, then you're a fool. In reality, it's rare to find a good fit, so I recommend approaching it with that in mind. To find the right partner, you need to have a clear vision of the qualities that they're going to possess, and your standards must be high. Go low, as my friend did, and like a moth to flame, you will pay a high emotional price, and so will your children. Have some common sense and know what you will and will not accept. Look at character, beliefs, and values, and do not settle. Do this and make your own life easier. Another topic that's so important for people to think about is physical intimacy. People we consider as mates need to have solid awareness that libidos change over the lifespan. They ebb and flow. And to be able to make it, we must be flexible during our sexual droughts, hurricanes, and harvest time. This is one of the biggest issues I see in the therapy room, and healthy boundaries in the bedroom mean that we must respect our partner's moments when they don't feel like sexual intimacy for whatever reason. Being aware of when you want to or don't mind or don't want to is part of sexual self-care, and no one should feel guilty or receive pushback about it. Another thing to be aware of is that sex can become painful or libido can disappear as women age. Most women go to their physician to seek answers for things like this. I'd want to know my partner is the kind of person who seeks answers. I've worked with a lot of women who didn't, and their spouses divorced them, which is why I'm bringing it up. They're full of regrets. However, if a woman does all she can and still has no libido and has painful intercourse, can her partner learn to live without the act of sexual intercourse, but perhaps enjoy other forms of sexual pleasure with her instead? I also wish men and women would notice more often who initiates sex and who doesn't, because far too many couples I've seen eventually conclude that really there's only been one initiator all along. What's up with that? If only one person initiates, I consider that a pink flag that needs to be investigated to find out if it's a red flag. Another thing is that sex with the same person over the lifespan has lots of potential to get routine and less meaningful. The solution to this is not swinging, having a third party enter the scene, or doing mate switches. If one of you loves kink, then make sure both of you love kink. And if either person wants to end that part of the intimacy at any time, it should be fine to do so. Here's something I wish I had thought of many years ago when I was looking for a mate. Genetics. If only I'd paid attention to genetics during my childbearing years, but back in 1985, it just was not a common consideration. My children's dad's family has a long history of alcoholism, drug addiction, and mental illness. When my grown daughter and only living child talks about it today, I apologize to her for not choosing a healthier sire. Her dad was handsome. He was intelligent, a hard worker, very well educated. He had many great qualities, but he had an addictive personality and a weakness for substances, let's say. Both of my children ended up struggling with various mental issues like depression and anxiety and substance abuse issues. And I blame myself for it at the end of the day. Why didn't I think of these things? Genetics plays a huge role in mental, physical, and emotional health and should be a huge consideration, especially if you plan to have children. Another topic, the science of mate selection. What draws us to people we end up with? Sociologists and evolutionary psychologists have been studying the topic for years, and their findings are really fascinating. At our core, we're all driven to do what we do because of biological imprinting that goes back to the beginning of time. Back in the Stone Age, women worried about survival, and they knew instinctively that the strong tended to survive and flourish, and the weak didn't. So when it came time for the cave woman to seek a mate and reproduce, she followed her survival instinct and noted who were the best prospective partners. Cave women valued men who were likely to stick around over the long term and provide strong and healthy genes that would give them the best shot at having strong and healthy children. In addition, the man needed to be able to provide food, shelter, and safety for she and her children. Our early ancestors sought men with the highest potential so they and their children would survive. This phenomenon occurs in every culture ever studied. Even in societies like the United States, where the infant mortality rate is relatively low, women are still drawn to culturally successful men. On a subconscious level, they know they and their children will benefit. The average modern woman is drawn to the most successful man because it affects her and her children's survival. This is still true, even though women today can provide for their children equally, just like men. I always tell men not to hold it against women that they're drawn to good providers because it's in their DNA. When the cave woman couldn't attract the most dominant caveman with strong genes and the best ability to provide and protect, she does what women do today. She settled. From time immemorial, the man in the highest demand could have his pick among cave women. He valued physical attractiveness and faithfulness. The caveman needed to know that if his wife became pregnant, it was his seed that was planted and no one else's. Therefore, the likelihood that the woman would remain faithful was one of his most important considerations when choosing a mate. I was recently told of a woman who slept with every man she met on the first date and then never heard from most of them again. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that. Women are definitely sexual animals. But when a man is looking for a life partner, his DNA tells him to steer toward the women who are likely to remain faithful. Women who are freely and instantly sexual might make good partners, but they also may be overlooked as the man's brain tells them to tread carefully. Of course, there are great people and fantastic partners who have sex immediately, but you have to weigh all the things I'm talking about to discern if they're substantial and have integrity. Today in American society, it is rare for a man or woman who can get the first choice when it comes to potential partners. Just like in caveman days, the most desirable mates are in short supply. Take my client Jamie, who kept choosing men who weren't healthy choices. As we explored the whys, she explained to me that she sees two choices. Search for a man of high quality who also wants her, which she knows is in short supply and she may never find, or be more realistic and bring her standards down several notches on the desirability scale. I always encourage my clients to shoot high and never sell themselves short. Here's some of the things I suggested that Jamie do to find the kind of person she desired. Number one, accurately gauge the highest quality person you can attract. If you have low self-esteem, you will likely choose someone with low self-esteem and your relationship will be disastrous. So work on your self-esteem and make sure it's solid. Get healthy in mind, body, and spirit, and you'll attract someone like that. When considering mates, take chances and shoot higher than you usually might. Be patient. If you're healthy, you'll be able to attract the right person for you. Learn how to date and hold on to your heart while you get to know someone. Dating is a look-see process, like test driving a car. It means nothing until you decide it does. It used to annoy me on dating apps when men would assume I was interested just because I agreed to meet. My attitude was, no, I need to meet to see if I'm interested. When you start talking to someone of romantic interest, take off any false masks and be yourself. Get to know the person you've met. Spend time finding out about their beliefs, values, dreams, and goals. See if the person can emotionally connect, is well balanced and mature, and if their personality fits and is a match for you. It will be smooth and easy if it is a fit, and there won't be drama and turmoil. Walk away at the first sign of incompatibility and red flags. And 3, if it looks like a match and you're interested in exploring a romance, then do it. But always be willing to walk away if the weather changes or it becomes too difficult. The choice of a life mate is the biggest one you'll ever make. Be discerning. Take your time. Don't overlook things you shouldn't. Be willing to walk away. If you feel you're in a hurry, then go to a therapist and figure out why you can't be patient and mindful about finding a good fit. Being in a hurry suggests that something is off emotionally, and these issues are fixable. Anyway, I want all single people to prepare themselves to be excellent mates, and to do that by getting to the healthiest place they possibly can before hanging that shingle out that says they're available. Finding the right person is an art and a science. In 1871, Charles Darwin wrote about selecting mates in his book, The Descent of Man, explaining that some people have more advantages than others when it comes to human mating and attracting mates. You have the power to give yourself the advantages by being the best mentally, emotionally, and physically healthy, and accurately acknowledging the unique and special gifts that you bring to the table. Make certain you're prepared to be the best partner you can. Be patient. Don't ignore red flags. Shoot high and do not settle. If I were in the market for a mate, my stance would be to be happy with being alone first. After that, any new potential connection would have to make my life better, or I wouldn't bother. Relationships aren't supposed to weigh us down or be a drag. I'd like a partner who practices some sort of spirituality, someone kind, who digs me, is open to change and growth, is easygoing and fun, and makes me laugh. Any negative baloney, and I don't want it, and you shouldn't either. I hope you enjoyed this article. I'm trying to help us have a healthier mental and emotional world and better relationships. This is Becky Whetstone, marriage and family therapist.